Monday to this day, and we welcome the Managing Director of Lehumo Capital, who is Mr. Maudi Lentsoane. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Well, quite an impressive week on the JSE. Let's first take a look at the highlights, all those who are impressing you.
Yeah, so a much quiet week, I must say, compared to what we had last week. We had an intense volatility last week with, obviously the whole saga surrounding the Minister of Finance. This week has been fairly quiet. We had still some few events that took place. We came through, I think, this week with the couple of data that came from the inflation numbers that we saw. We also had, the GDP numbers out of China, which were in line with the expectations. The CPI number, yesterday, missing expectations. So it has been a fairly quiet week, and especially for the rand. We've recovered since the kind of weakness that we saw last week. So a fairly quiet week, very good, I think, for the market. We don't need the kind of volatility that we saw last week.
Yeah, looking at the retail sales that came out this week, it means that consumers are staying away from the shopping malls, not really quite aggressive as they go shopping.
Most certainly. I mean, you can expect the consumers to be under pressure. We've got an economy that is not growing. We've got a high unemployment rate, almost half of the population without jobs. So you can expect those numbers, of course, to come under pressure. And I think what the picture that we saw reflect precisely that. We've also got high inflation. So all those things that I've mentioned, they're eating into the consumer's disposable income, and therefore they're not able to have enough money to spend.
Looking at MTN, they extended the deadline for the registering of the Zakhele Futhi shares.
Yes, so MTN announced the BEE, the latest BEE transaction or scheme, MTN Zakhele Futhi. The deadline was supposed to be, in fact, today, which is the 21st. So they've extended the deadline to the 28th, which is next week, Friday. And, one wonders, why have they extended the due date if, it was oversubscribed, or if the demand has been high? One would suspect that perhaps the demand hasn't been as high as they expected. So
but is it a good share to invest in?
Look, MTN as a company, it's a very strong company. The telecommunications space, we love it, and I think over the long term, it's certainly a good story. It will continue to certainly perform well. But I think over the past couple of months, MTN has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. We know that, especially from Nigeria, they were impacted negatively by the massive fine that they received from Nigeria. Just when we thought that was over, they also had another story developing out of Nigeria that they might have. There's a suspicion that they have taken money out of Nigeria illegally. And I think that was around this time the scheme was being announced. The share price was around 135. The share price has now collapsed all the way down. I think the latest price is around 106. So at 135, when they announced this scheme, they were saying the scheme gives you about 20% discount to the current or to the then MTN share price. Now the share price has fallen by more than 20%. The question is, which price are we actually referring to? And I think that's still a bit of a confusion. I got onto the phone call with the MTN call center this morning to find out exactly which one. Is it a discount from the current share price of 106 or is it a discount from 135? Because if it is a discount from 135 when the scheme was announced, then it's not a good deal. But if it's a discount from the current price, then it's a good deal.
Yeah, surely from an expert view, it would be rather easy for you to say, unlike, an ordinary person who wants to make a decision on whether or not to invest in the share. But social media has been abuzz with everybody saying, finally, rain has come.
No, certainly. I think, we've had the rain, and it's a good thing for South Africa. I mean, we've had massive drought, and we know the impact of this drought that we've been encountering over the past couple of months. We've seen with the food inflation, and the food inflation is very high, and it's primarily because of the drought, partly because of the drought that we've had. And if, we continue to see more rains, perhaps we could see some of the dams. I mean, some of the dams were registered or were reported to be now at 50% or below 50% level, which is what we've had, which is why we had the water restrictions that we had. So the rain needs to come and it needs to come more, because we definitely
we
need
definitely need more rain.
Certainly.
But certainly in our future interviews, we will talk about the forthcoming festive season and, you know, the shopping trends that we're going to see as consumers are under pressure. But then you must remember that this is the time around of the time of the year where people are getting bonuses.
Most certainly. I think you captured it very well in your book. Why broke when there's so much information? You talk about December, boss.
Yeah.
Let's hope they'll avoid that.
Yeah, that's to come in our future interviews. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, sir.
Well, looking at the week that was, the managing director of Lehumo Capital, Maudi Lentsoane, and of course giving us his analysis of the markets for this week, and of course looking at other stories.